The buildings of Paris are so monumentally confident. Take Mr. Eiffel's Tower, for instance, a common enough landmark now, but there was uproar when it was finished. "It's not finished," they all shouted. All that steel work and girdering should be hidden with panels. But by the time our Prince of Wales declared it open in 1889, it had already become a symbol of daring and invention. So in such a short time has the Centre Pompidou. President Pompidou commissioned a British architect, Richard Rogers, and stood firm against howls of established anger. Confident, you see. Arrogant, you might almost say. I'm intimidated by this capital city, and there's a personal reason. I came here when I was 18, first time away from home, to stay with a French family for Christmas. It was an exchange visit, but I didn't know that they were going to be so grand. I'd arrived in Paris with all the wrong clothes, and my confusions were worse confounded after midnight mass on Christmas Eve at a formal dinner hosted by my pen friend's mother. Since I was sitting on her right-hand side, she commanded the table. When it looked as everybody had finished, I saw her from the corner of this eye incline herself slightly towards me and put her hand under the table. Her hand started to go under the table, and I looked straight out ahead thinking, you know, she's probably brushing something away, or there's an irritation of some kind. And then, unmistakably, her hand began to brush what would be my knee. And I felt this aristocratic French hand warmly touching my knee. Now, I didn't know what to think at this moment. I thought, well, either, you know, this is a message I have to send on. Somehow we're playing tap the knee, and you've got to pass it around and see what comes out of the other end, if anything. Or that she's a woman starved of affection, and somehow wishes me to reciprocate something under the table. Then this thing persisted, and she began to fiddle around. And there was a time at which I couldn't ignore this, and I really rather sort of clenched my teeth and looked straight ahead and tried to look interested in the conversation. And when I found out that what she was actually doing was searching for the electric bell, which was hanging underneath the table, the kind of presser or buzzer hanging under the table, and that I was not required to satisfy some kind of strange desire of hers or to repay some kind of French hospitality, she clanked the bell, and the doors opened and the servants came in and relieved me of a great deal of embarrassment and confusion. 40 years on, and I'm still a little nervous about the grand occasion. I've been invited to another posh do. This is the British Embassy in Paris, a little palace which the English government bought from Napoleon's sister, Pauline Borghese, after Waterloo. It sits elegantly in the Faubourg Saint-Honoré behind high-tech security and guarded walls. Who is that? It's a house of immense elegance and polish. They get all kinds of callers here. The royal family can claim bed and breakfast, so can MPs and trade union leaders, and anyone who can lend a hand with the balance of payments.
I thought the library would help me a lot when I first arrived.
Before lunch, the ambassador's wife took me to the private library, a gift from a former ambassador, Duff Cooper, to look up the records of previous tourists. I hadn't known, for instance, that Charles Dickens was a regular visitor and had immense success with his one-man show here at the embassy.
He came often to Paris, but on this particular visit, this is what he says: "The reading so stuns and oversets the Parisians that I shall have to do it again. Blazes of triumph. They are so extraordinarily quick to understand a face and gesture going together that people who don't understand English positively understand the readings." I think he must have been rather
It sounds slightly pompous.
pompous.
Yeah. They clapped him all the way out, apparently.
Then he goes on to say, yes, all this culminated on the last night when they positively applauded and called out expressions of delight. Out of the room into the cloakroom, out of the cloakroom into their carriages, and in their carriages away down the Faubourg. Great success. We'll give you a whole, I'll send you some down to the opera.
At lunch, Sir John and Lady Fretwell's other guests are the director of the Paris Opera Ballet, Rudolf Nureyev, and the wife of one of France's most popular composers, the actress Charlotte Rampling.
Poor specimen we have.
I wouldn't want this to go too far, but there is a lurking lump of snobbery inside me which responds quite warmly to the high life of an embassy. And there is, thank God, no bell under Lady Fretwell's table. After lunch, we withdrew to the garden room for statutory coffee and liqueur. I had imagined that we would wallow in the philosophy of travel, how you planned a journey, where you stayed. Instead, for some obscure reason, we found ourselves talking about that last great resting place, when the fever of life's travel is over and the journey's done.
Well, I thought at one moment, I would like to rot somewhere in those rocks, observing.
Otherwise, it's the south of France and the beauty of the south of France, or it's the rocks. And
But Charlotte, what about you?
no idea.
You've never even thought
You
about
don't want to be rotting.
What?
don't
Well, I'm like you. Sometimes I want to rot, and sometimes I want to be in the most beautiful place in the world.
Do you know there's a thing now in California where you can have your ashes put into a rocket along with 15,000 other sets of ashes about that big and fired into the atmosphere in a kind of Ariane thing.
That you're beginning to enjoy.
And then you give parties in the evening and you watch your friends' ashes go.
They come past at sunset
They come
every night.
Oh, there goes Charles. There goes
There's our Charles shining bright in the sky tonight. It's called Celestis. It's a good idea, don't you
Jenny, we're not bright tonight.
They did the grand tour. I mean, you know, one's thinking now about disposing of oneself. In those days, they thought about coming out and enriching themselves.
I mean, it took them probably
Therefore,
1
the
year to
invention,
organize,
yes.
no? 1 year to organize.
I don't think maybe it was even that organised. They probably had points of call that they knew that they hoped they would get to. But in between, it was adventure.
I think they
which I
played
think
it
is
hardy,
what is
weren't they?
nice.
Would you do?
Well,
Would
it's
you
much
We don't
less than
have
we
that
do now.
now. We don't, yeah, I would love that. I mean, very unlike you, Russell. I would love to know where I wasn't sleeping tomorrow night.
Do you need air? The only sensible conclusion I can reach about this lovely lunch was that no one wanted it to finish, and so it drifted on into the warm afternoon.
Yes, we can. Lord, John has been
Why do you need to put your hat on?
Yes, I knew he was on your left. On your left.
Well, maybe, but I didn't leave any traces.
Kiss without trace, it is. Meanwhile, there is a more ordinary Parisian life humming outside. That imperial spirit of national dignity, panache almost, was first effectively demonstrated by Napoleon, who commissioned housemen to build l'Étoile, a star of architectural victory, radiating the huge boulevards which drive out from the Arc de Triomphe. And they're still at it. Today, they're building a modern arc in an area called La Défense, carrying out the work engineered by the same principle of confidence. Can you imagine the endless committees of compromise the English would demand before such concrete and steel power was shaken out of the earth? I don't think it's beautiful. I don't even think it's attractive. But it is absolutely not to be ignored. The French can teach New York a thing or two. Typically French, as Mrs. Thatcher would observe.